All right, what's up, guys? And we are here with Skylar Fiction and Dr. Josh, Digital Hammurabi in the house. Gonna have a nice, awesome discussion. Oh, what did I do? I always do that. All right, let's get past that. All right, so Dr. Josh, Skylar Fiction, what's up?
Not too much. How you doing, man?
I'm real good
Hey,
waking
hey.
up.
Nah, man, it's exciting to be on here, man. It'd be a fun night, man.
Yeah, I'm really excited. My second time meeting Skylar, second time having Dr. Josh on the channel. I don't know if you remember Skylar. Me and you was in a hangout on Cirrus's channel talking about Matt Powell.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
yeah. That was
and
fun.
yeah, that was a while ago. But I'm super stoked to have you here. I try to watch every single one of your shows live now. And super fan. I know a lot of people in the house are excited. So, we were just talking about Brett Keane, and before we get into tonight's discussion, which should be an interesting one, um, I wanted to ask, you told me a little bit about it. So I was telling you how on Twitter, Brett Keane told me that it was YouTube and that he didn't do it. And yeah, you were pretty clear that it's definitely Brett Keane.
Yeah, so, when it hit my video, basically, that I'd taken from his channel, there was a portion of his video, some of the audio, and I changed all the images. So I put new images to replace Brett Keane and Matt Powell. I believe I replaced his image with something else too. But the whole video, the actual imagery was completely different. I edited together with the conversation I had with Matt Powell. When I got the copyright claim, I mean, it was totally under fair use. There's no reason why this video should have been flagged. And he's got a history of false flagging channels. He will get other Christians together. He's literally the lowest piece of scum that you could probably find on the internet. And what he will do is constantly he'll create multiple accounts, go flag videos. He e-begs all the time for different stuff. Like, you go to his channel right now, look under like his Amazon wish list and shit, like a PlayStation and different kind of games, systems and shit like that. But he is, he's a shady son of a bitch, basically. To Christians, to atheists, he will come back around and he will bite you. But when you get the Google copyright claim, it straight up tells you who the claimant is. Like, it tells you that Brett Keane is the person who put it in there. And what happens is, unless it's like a corporation or something, they like, say it was like Sony or owns some music or something like that. It's going to put the corporation information there. And it was straight up using Brett Keane in there. So, yeah, he's just bullshitting and full of it. It's definitely, and we're waiting to see. It should be past the 14-day mark now. So I'm hoping any day now they're going to come back and tell me the video's back up and I get this strike removed. But
Yeah, hopefully that happens. I've been interested on whether or not you've gotten the strike removed, so that answers that question. Because yeah, I found out the hard way with Brett. I made a well. He interjected himself into me and Matt Powell's beef that we had that was ongoing, and made some videos about me. So I responded with two videos. One of them I called him the manatee. I got a lot of heat from my audience, so I'm like, all right, I'll stop calling him the manatee.
but he is a fucking manager.
Yeah, and he proves it. Yeah, he proves it with his actions because we were cool. I went on his stream. He came on my stream. That's a big stream I had with G-Man and Darth, and it was a really good stream. So the next weekend or the next week, what happened with you happened, and I saw the video like immediately, and you put it right there on the video where the copyright strike came from Brett Keane. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go into Brett Keane's live stream. I'm going to ask him about this, but I never got a chance because before I could, they had G-Man on, and that was a train wreck. And then they started talking about the border crisis, putting kids in cages, and I flipped out. So I didn't even get to ask him about that. So the next day on Twitter, I'm like, Brett, what's up? I wanted to ask you about Skylar Fiction, and that's when he gave me the whole, oh, it was YouTube did it, I didn't do it, blah blah blah. And I'm like, come on, dude, he put it right in the video that like everybody saw that it came from you. So yeah, he was just weaseling out of it, and he won't even come and talk to me anymore because he knows I want to talk about that.
No, I mean, fuck that guy. That's all I would say. And like, honestly, it's not what. And this is what I tell people: the best thing you can do for people like Brett Keane is just completely ignore them. Don't pay attention to them. Let their channels die into oblivion where nobody watches them anyways. And,
oh yeah, he's put out a new video on me, and I didn't go back at him. Ocean gave me good advice, like it's not worth it. It's just Brett Keane, so I didn't. And,
Brett Keane. That's
yeah, and then 2 nights ago, I found a video of his little atheist butt boy, Will Kincaid, and it was so disrespectful. I'm like, all right, I have to go back at this. So tomorrow I'll be on Will Kincaid, but I'm not technically going after Brett. I do call him manatee a couple times.
I almost feel bad as being someone from Florida, or we have those wonderful creatures that are manatees. I feel bad that we put manatee in a negative light, but but he does look like a manatee. So
yeah.
He's probably like the dickhead manatee. I mean, there's got to be at least one dickhead manatee out there, and I'm gonna give Brett Keane that credit. Say that's him. King.
Yeah, he's the bad manatee. I was watching Non Sequitur the other night, and Jeff Holiday was talking about how he's trying to be friends with Brett Keane. I'm like, don't do it, dude. It's a trap. Don't do it.
No, there's so many better channels out there that people can watch and be entertained by than to get into some of this stuff. It's hard. Like I find maybe we'll speak this a little bit to you, Dr. Josh. Like some of the characters that we run into that come on the channel, it's hard because at some point you've got to just acknowledge its stupidity on some level, right? Like when praise that I am even I feel bad even talking about his name, but when you really think about it, we made a couple videos trying to correct the stupidity. Just because someone had to do it, right? Mm-hmm. But at some point, it gets to a moment where you're like, okay, would I argue with a crazy person on the side of the road if I just passed them, right? And I'm like, probably wouldn't, right? Or if I was in the workplace and someone did some wacky ideas and you're like, oh, I'm just going to kind of walk away from you and not engage with you, I'd probably do it. But for some reason with YouTube, it just sucks you in. You're like, you see it in video form where they just ramble on for like 10 minutes and don't understand. Like they pretend like they understand these complex languages from thousands of years ago, some of them. And I don't know. Like I've got that's terrible for me. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Dr. Josh? I know you're probably running the frustration of whether it's just you got to have time to just ignore them. Or that party that wants to be like, you know what, man, you're really wrong here, and you really got to know why you're wrong.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's I think about the people that listen to that sort of stuff because I don't. There are certain people that I don't think are actually in any way interested in learning.
Sure.
So
yeah.
So I feel like if it were just the two of us having a conversation, I probably wouldn't spend a great deal of time if I got the same response. Sure. That being said, I mean, I feel like there are a number of people that watch our show, and so I think in those venues, it's probably a good thing people are going to hear these arguments, right? The latest one is this Numbers 25 plague thing. And it's so ridiculous. And yet, if you don't read through the text, if you don't study the book of Numbers, which there are a lot of people who just don't have time to do it. It can be very convincing. Oh, well, sure. If you're having sex with animals, then you're gonna get all kinds of diseases, and that's what But it's incorrect.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it is frustrating, but
it's so implausible in a lot of ways, right? Like they think about these societies in such unique ways, like not believing there was any form of family structure. Or like thinking because yes, just like today, there are human beings who have sex with animals. Like that is a fact. They exist. They live amongst us, right? It's not like I don't believe back then, what they're talking about, especially what's his name? Jill. Jesus is Lord. Basically, he's trying to argue as if everyone was out there just fucking a goat. Right? Everybody was everybody had their goat Everyone was like, all right, it's 7 o'clock in the evening. This is when me and the goat get down. Like, it's it's so abnormal. Like, you forget, like, yes, they were different from us in a lot of ways, older cultures, but in a lot of ways they were still pretty much the same in some core fundamentals. I don't know, and I think that they look into this world and they have to kind of like twist and turn it to a point to where it matches their book, the narrative, which is the Bible. And it doesn't even, smart people too. Like, what was that one guy that we had on? He had written a book, and it was about, like, I think he was, I don't know if he was an astrophysicist, but he was a smart dude.
The open theist?
No. Older dudes that we went on Non Sequitur. We had a conversation with first, and then he came back and did a show with just you and I. And we had pressed him on a particular issue. Was I got to a point where we were talking in Genesis, and obviously the sun comes after a lot of other stuff that needs to be here first before the sun needs to be first on the list, basically, before the earth forms and all this other kind of stuff. And it was, and he just wouldn't acknowledge it. Like, I was just like, listen, this clearly contradicts it. We can't have all this other stuff. We can't have light without the sun, basically.
Yeah, Daniel Ray.
Daniel Ray, that's it. Thank you, Josh.
Boy, that took me way too long to come up with.
Me too. I could not think of the dude's name. Totally nice guy.
Guy,
a really nice guy. I pushed him a little hard in the second half, and I felt a little bad for uncertain. I don't even remember what the issue was, but it was a whole thing. But yeah, but people will go against their own rationale and reason because they have to work backwards.
Well, I mean, and I think that for me, that's sort of the real issue here, right? Like, these arguments would never surface if we were talking about the Enuma Elish, right? Nothing would ever come up like this if we were talking about, Akkadian literature. Never. Yeah. You wouldn't have these problems, right? Because nobody would care. You would say, oh, that's a cool literary text. Oh, look at this Sumerian, royal hymn. Oh, Shulgi says that he runs from one part of Sumer to the other part and back in a day. Yeah. I mean, of course that's bullshit, right? He's just boasting. He didn't really do that.
Yeah.
But once it's in the Bible, well, now we got to figure out some way that actually happened, right? Mm-hmm. And I think I think not letting the text be in the genre that it is probably the worst thing that I see. And it's frustrating because trying to push the text to say things that it's just not intending to say. It's not even in the same. Again, this isn't a science book, right? It's never intended to be that way. But yet, when the text has to be understood in a certain way, when it has to be interpreted in a certain way, then you come at it from any direction that you can, and you come up with these fallacious things like, oh, look, a plague. Oh, look, Leviticus 18 says that the nations around are sleeping with animals. Well, if you sleep with animals, you get sicknesses. That must be what it is. And it's so irrelevant. The plague is from God against Israel. It's like the 7th time in the book that it's happened. And to ignore the rest of the book of Numbers and the rest of the times in the biblical text where the word plague is used, it's just wrong. So anyway, sorry.
No,
yeah, I agree. Like I run into it all the time. And Jill's in the chat, and it looks like he's timed out now. But yeah, he's screaming up bloody murder. I didn't say everyone. Like, Jill, you always say everyone. But yeah, my last 2 debates on modern day debates, it seemed like that both of the Christians are attacking me because I'm an atheist. I must have sex with animals, and I'm like, is this like a new talking point that every Christian has now? Because
it must be
completely new to me,
You know what? Oh, sorry, Skylar, but I just want to say one of the things that I found very humorous is that debate that happened recently, where it was talking about if do atheists run from from debates. Did you see that one?
No.
And I thought it was humorous because I watched it and heard our good friend, I don't even want to say his name, talking about how we're running from him.
Oh, yeah. All right. I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And
right.
Skylar, correct me if I'm wrong here. Didn't we have a debate set up on the Non Sequitur show?
Yeah, we had a whole thing. Like I got him to agree to come on Non Sequitur, which they would have been fair. Stephen, Kyle would have been fantastic. Most of the time, we don't really need moderation when Dr. Josh and I have a conversation with people. Mm-hmm. Like I don't usually need to have a moderator step in, and because it's usually a pretty good conversation, and we kind of balance everything out, right? But we're happy to, because if that's where you feel more comfortable, we have a moderated debate. Like, it would have been fantastic to be able to go on a Non Sequitur. Kyle and Steve would have been great hosts for us. That would have been fair moderators. It has a lot more viewers than my channel and many other channels out there. So may have opened up to a lot more new audiences for these folks. And they agree. They're like, oh yeah, we'll do your show. And then about 3 days later, after we start booking it on the Non Sequitur, figuring out the date and everything, he comes back. He's like, no, we're never going on. He's like, you can forget me, Jill and I ever coming on the Non Sequitur show.
Because I mean, I might be misremembering this, but I thought you sent me a screenshot of it where it said something like, "It doesn't matter what the platform is, like any platform."
Yeah, they just say it. And I think I know who you're talking about. I think I had a debate with him. So yeah, and this must be what Kyle was talking about, because Kyle was talking about how Jill had backed out of a debate with you guys, and I'm like, no, I think that Skylar kicked Jill off, and then Jill came on my channel and we crushed him again. He was like, no, it was a different time. This is some, and I forgot I was supposed to ask you about this, but obviously you guys are bringing it up. So yeah, Jill did back out of this debate with you guys. That's
Jill
funny.
And Praise That I Am, yeah. There's supposed to be a 2-on-2 debate, Jill and Praise That I Am, and yeah, they backed out.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Like, look, this topic is getting a little old for me, but whatever. If people are interested in it, I'm very, and it's something that needs to be elucidated. I'm very happy to keep going at it. But I just find it funny that, I mean, hey, I'm still quite willing to go on that Non Sequitur show debate. Skylar, I suspect you are too.
Absolutely.
I find it humorous that the topic was do atheists run from debate? And of course, neither of us are atheists. I mean, I guess maybe they weren't talking about us. But I do think it's funny that the protagonist in that or the one arguing on the pro side of that was one of the two that backed out of a debate with us. So anyway.
Yeah, and Jill just recently totally dodged a debate with me too. So, and I am an atheist, and I was more than willing to go on his channel, and all he did was keep me up, and it never happened.
So Skylar, I think maybe your audio is a little low, boss. Is there a?
Let me see if I can turn this thing up here. Hello, testing. Is it any better? I can get a different pair of headphones. Hold on, I'll be back.
My phone's blowing up. Like, they know better. But yeah, and what's funny too is Praise and Jill, but Praise especially gave you, Dr. Josh, so much crap about the slavery in the Bible thing when you are a person that actually knows the original text. And I gave him a lot of crap for it in our debate, but to have lined up a debate on it to where he's going to have his chance at moderation, not coming on to Skylar and it's you and Skylar against him, you would think that he would jump at that chance since he cried foul like he did. But it's funny how they run away scurrying as soon as it starts to get set up.
I mean, I don't feel like, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't read myself very well, but I don't feel like I'm an aggressive, mean person.
Not at all.
I did I did toward the end get my dander up a bit, but it was I think it got up when he started saying rather inconsiderate things about Skylar. But even with that, I don't know. I don't feel like going on a show like the Non Sequitur. I've debated on the Non Sequitur show before, and I debated that guy from Lord Rael's camp, and I got a little hot on that one too, and I feel like it was moderated reasonably well, and he got plenty of time to talk, and so yeah, I don't know, but and this is the other thing, and I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot.
No, go for it.
I think the other thing here is that this isn't about winning, right? And I think that's the real issue here. The question, at least for me, and I hope for everybody, is that what does the text actually say?
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder sometimes if that's not actually what we're after in some of these discussions, because if you let the text say what it says, and I'll give, I'm going to give this individual props. In my response to him, I said, he was making an argument that there are two verbs in the sentence in Exodus 21:20. And so the two verbs must refer to two different subjects, one the slave, one the owner. And I said, this is a particular Hebrew construction called an infinitive absolute. He's calling it an infinite absolute now, which that's not what it is. But at any rate, it's an infinitive. But nonetheless, he has changed what he said, which I think is fantastic, right? I mean, he's saying he's not making his argument anymore. He's taking correction there, which I think is fantastic. I hope maybe as time goes by, more of that will set in. I don't know.
Well, yeah, and you think that it's their religion now. It's not your religion anymore. You all you care about is being accurate and truthful with it. You would think that since it's a religion that they're actively practicing at the moment, that they would be interested in the truth of it, but they're not. They're only interested in scoring points. It's one of the things I hate about it,
Yeah, and I one of the things that I find to be most beneficial about having a good understanding of the text is that it's very freeing.
Mm-hmm.
For a Christian. Again, my wife is a Christian, and her whole family's Christian, and my family's Christian, and I obviously have no problem with that. But they're the types of Christians that are not. Let me choose my words carefully here. They're out for the good of humanity and not at other members of humanity's expense.
Mm.
Is that a good way to say it? I don't know.
I like that.
But I find it freeing when you don't have to wrestle so much with these Old Testament texts, because you can say, well, here's what this text was doing. Here's the reality behind it. And move on with your life. So yeah.
Yeah. You'd think that they would definitely want to know, but like even the conversations I've had in my family, and they're, I would say, all good Christians that try not to judge people, but you try to tell them anything that goes against what they've always been taught, even if it's the truth and what's in the original text or how the original Christians acted, they don't want to hear that. They only want to know or hear the things that they're comfortable hearing. It disturbs the hell out of me.
Yeah, I don't think there's any. Sorry, Skylar, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, please.
There's no the slavery issue, and I know we keep talking about it, but yeah, just let it be. I mean, really, don't fight it so hard. There's no need to, right? So the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible is really, in this respect, in some ways, it's definitely, you read through Leviticus, particularly Leviticus 19. You definitely see, there's nobody questioning that, a development in the way that society is supposed to treat one another. There's no question about that. It doesn't mean that it's develop to our levels of moral standards. But if you look at some of the things that Levitical law calls for, the Mosaic Covenant calls for, they are developed in some respects. In others, they're not. And the treatment of women, it's not. And really, the fact that you still hold slaves is not. But
there's some bad things in there.
But in the same way that I think it's probably not a good idea to demonize people hundreds of years ago that did things that today we would say are immoral, and to hold them to the same moral standards that we hold ourselves, having undergone those hundreds of years of moral development and societal development. I think it's also unfair to hold ancient cultures to that same level of high moral standard. And nobody's doing that. See, this is the point. We're not doing that. Skylar and I aren't doing that on the show. What we're saying, the whole point is that morality changes, it develops. And that should, as a Christian, should allow you to think differently about your text and think differently about the God that you believe is behind it. And that frees you up to not have to say, all right, homosexuality, bad, because Bible say bad. You don't have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway,
how long do you think it takes before we as like human beings get rid of it to where it evolves enough to where, because I can see a point where because I think we're almost getting there in a lot of ways. I think people who there's probably millions of people who go to churches where it's really just more like positively focused. They talk about Jesus and like healing, but of course they're never going to go to the Old Testament of the Bible in church or anything. I think you just leave that part out. And for most Christians, I don't think they deal with those Old Testament scriptures. And when people first, when they meet some atheists, or if they're, there's some poor person, some poor person who's going to step in a room with someone who knows the Bible and is talking about the history and all those type of things, they're not ready for it. And when you go they're gonna be like, they probably I know how many, I can tell you so many people I've talked to where I went to I brought up some kind of random scripture of the Bible where it's just really awful sounding and terrible, and I just bring it up. I'm like, what's going on here? Just tell me what's going on here. And they're just dumbfounded because they've never read that portion. Most Christians, I don't think, read the Bible, to be honest with you. So except when they're in church. I think when they're in church, maybe the devout ones. I think there is a decent sized group of devout Christians that are doing Bible studies every week. But even mostly that, they stick to New Testament type stuff. But it's evolving. I think eventually, there'll be a point where, I think people move from a Bible focused type of thing for religion to just some kind of just Jesus. Here, have a little cup of Jesus. This is what the important part is. And then that will be, the Bible will slowly go away, and then maybe that will finally go away too. But who knows?
And I think that I think that for a lot of religious people, they do that already, whether they admit it or not. They do that already, because you come to I had a conversation this weekend about this with someone in my family. We do this. Christians do this. I did it when we come to the biblical text. Even if we hold the biblical text to be the inspired and inerrant word of God, we still come to the text and say things like, okay, we know that slavery is wrong. Look, these two people that we keep talking about know that slavery is wrong, right? They know that it's wrong. And so, and you can hear it in their voice. It's not chattel slavery. It's not chattel slavery. You can't steal a person. So they know that that's wrong, right? They know that owning another human being against their will is not a good thing to do. And so, like a child being born into slavery and staying in slavery for his life, it's not a good thing. And so they're coming to the text. And even though I think they do still weird things, like say it's okay to sell yourself today to Bill Gates. That's a weird thing to say. I'm not an attorney, but I don't think you're allowed to do that legally. Sell yourself to another human being. Anyway,
that was probably some issues there.
That was my big contention against it. It's all right, so say it is indentured servitude, but we don't allow that in our society today. Like, you would not do that. Oh yes, I would do that. Like, trust me, you would not put yourself through that shit. Like, come on now.
Yeah. And but this is, for me, this is the bigger issue, because we come to the text and we do this. We filter the text through our current morality, our relative morality, right? I guess that's what we should call it. The social norms that we've grown up with and that we understand. And so that makes it easy for us to sort of look the other way and say things like, oh, that's the Old Testament. Oh, that's before Jesus, And then to even look at the New Testament texts that talk about slavery or these other things and say, well, it's more developed than it was in the Old Testament. So, like Philemon the book of Philemon is showing slavery to be even more developed. So you can see it's on this trajectory to go away. Well, it's, of course, right? This is the point.
Slavery, man.
Yeah, like
that's crazy shit happen.
And you would think that they could mold the argument in their favor and be like, well, through the grace of God, we have evolved as a society. We have become better people because of God, and we don't do that. But no, they just, by running away from it, you show you're disingenuous. You lose the argument by running away from it or trying to change what it says into something else. Jesus is Lord is screaming right now. Come talk about this with me on, dude. I'm totally, like, Dr. Josh, he was there. I was in there waiting to talk to you at 3:30. You canceled the whole show. Like, I'm not going to do that again, dude. I work at night.
Jill, come on the non sequitur and talk to us about it.
Yeah. Talk to Dr. Josh and Skylar on the non sequitur show.
The debate that you were supposed to do. And let me just say, I mean, I've said this before, and then I promise I'll be quiet. But I mean, let's just to set the record straight here. There's definitely indentured servitude, both for Israelites and non-Israelites. But the difference in the Old Testament text between the types of slavery that could happen, there's several different kinds. But the two primary ones are indentured servitude and chattel slavery. Chattel slavery is, and you can tell this, if the slave dies, and property that is owned by or possessed by or due to that slave, does it go back to his family or does it go to the master? If it goes to the master, chattel slavery. And you had foreign slaves, both among the goyim and those that are the toshavim, the ones that are dwelling in the land, probably like alien tenant farmers. They could be taken. They could be taken, not stolen. That's not the idea. Nobody's arguing for people being kidnapped. They're being sold, right? Or they're selling themselves. But they are then kept in le'olam, right? They're kept into perpetuity. The Greek says eis ta iona. I can't remember which one, but it's to the ages, right? It's the phrase that's used throughout the biblical text for forever. That's how we understand it. And these foreign slaves are just that, and they are kept into perpetuity, and they're passed on to children as inheritance. This is what the reality was, and it was in essence no different than what was going on in the other nations around.
That's the thing I never understood. Is this was common practice back in these days for almost every culture. Like to deny that this was happening, you're just going against the whole face of history at this point.
And the other thing that's frustrating about this, and I've now started looking in the side chat. Yeah, come on, Jill, come on to non-sec and prove me wrong. Now you're getting my dander up now. I'll put it in the side chat so I can calm back down. But the thing that I think really interesting that people don't understand is chattel slavery doesn't mean you could do anything you wanted to your slave, right? That's never argued. And that's not just in the Hebrew Bible. That's not just an Israelite, legal text. If you look at, for example, the laws of Hammurabi, there's only there's certain instances where you can do things to your slave as punishment. You can't just do whatever you want to him. and nobody would argue that they're chattel slaves, or that they're not chattel slaves, right? They clearly are. But you can't just treat them any way that you want. Yes, you can treat them worse than you would treat somebody else. But you don't just have free reign. They're not simply, in that sense, a piece of property like a table just break apart. Right?
Yeah, I've noticed that seems to be one of their arguments, is that like we have this image of American slavery, and so we're referring to that image of American slavery when we speak of biblical slavery. And I would say no, it's the other way around. It's they had that image, and they're trying to justify how Judea didn't do that all those years ago. And none of us are saying that. We have very detailed accounts of what happened with American slavery because it wasn't that long ago. We don't really know about the slavery that happened in Judea like we do with the slavery that happened in America. So they are the ones that actually had that in their head, and they're trying to justify biblical slavery because modern slavery was so horrible. Nobody's saying that biblical slavery was anything like the slavery that happened in a couple hundred years ago. What we are saying is it was slavery. It wasn't indentured servitude. There were two different forms, and that they can't get beyond that.
Yeah, nobody, Skylar, I don't think you've ever said, I know I've never said this was antebellum slavery. I don't know anything about, really, in detail, anything about antebellum slavery.
You know what it is? It's an emotional response they have.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, when you ask them a question like that, like when you go to like stuff that's darker in scripture, and you're going to be like, well, here's God ordering this or doing this terrible thing. And like, you don't even have, as long as you can literally ask a question, don't lay judgment, and you'll see the reaction in their face. You'll see like that, like sense of like, this sounds fucked up. I know this shouldn't be like this in the Bible, but now I've got to defend it. And they'll go through all these backwards ways to kind of explain away a scripture that if you just took if you had some understanding of what was going on at the time and just looked at it in a sense of being like, yeah, this was written by humans. This is the time period these human beings were alive here at some portions. That's why they're culturally like this. Like if you're just honest with yourself about it, you can get rid of all that dogma. And then when someone asks you a tough question like, why did God send like these two bears out and kill a bunch of like kids for making fun of a bald prophet? Right? Like when you ask a Christian, they're like, what's up with God here? God's just like some like, and that's literally what happened. So this prophet is like going around doing his prophet like stuff. And then like, here comes some like a big group of kids, and they're all like, yo, you're bald, man. And they basically keep calling him like baldy all over, like over and over again. And then like this guy's, what, this prophet's like, I got God on my side here. I'm the motherfucking prophet. And then what he does is he gets like, all right, here you go, kids. Does his prophet-like thing. 2 bears come running out of the woods, 2 she-bears, as it's described. And then they tear up a bunch of kids. This is what you really like. Somebody out there has to take this literally, because the way they look at the Bible, they literally think God through this prophet through God made a bear come and kill a bunch of kids. It's so ridiculous on so many levels.
I think what's most fascinating about that, is that if you read through Leviticus 26, it's probably not a chapter that many people have spent a lot of time going through.
John is like, let me tell you about a chapter in Leviticus. What's going on?
We all know Leviticus 25, right? But
the before bedtime stories you read to your children.
Leviticus 26 is a lot like Deuteronomy 28. Does that help? I don't know. But it lays out. There's this motif in the ancient Near East where if you agree to a covenant with somebody, right? You make an agreement with somebody. Mm-hmm. Down at the bottom of the agreement, at the bottom of the covenant, you have this curse formula, these curse formulae that say if that one of the parties that signs this thing goes back on it, may Shamash kill their firstborn, may Donna like all these really bad things happen. Well, if you read through Leviticus 26, and I mean, I think it's demonstrably so that particularly the book of Deuteronomy, but also sections of Leviticus are paralleling these types of covenant. I mean, it's this curse formula that's at the end. So if you read through Leviticus 26, it says, if you do all of these things, the first half of the chapter, if you do all these things, if you remember the Lord, you keep his commandments, you keep the Sabbath, and you do all these things, all these great things will happen in the land. You'll have your produce and you'll eat of the fat of the land, and everybody's going to be great. And, but if you don't, if you rebel, you disobey me, I will bring a certain number of curses upon you. And one of those curses is that wild animals, will eat your children, right? Will make your highways desolate. And so I think it's arguable that these texts are related, right? That this story about Elisha and the two she bears. There's some intertextuality going on here, So, they're disobeying these, to speak against the prophet this way, to curse the prophet this way is, this is God's main man.
Yeah.
And so this is, bringing about the punishments there of Leviticus 26. So.
Damn.
Yeah, that's messed up.
Yeah, it is messed up.
That's what they do. Oh man, yeah. It's the Bible is loaded with fun and adventure every time you go into it. Like there was so much when we started reading, when we were doing the Bible studies on the channel. Like so many things that I had forgotten about. Like back when I used to go to church and actually read the Bible all the time, and it's just like right back in your face. Like so much excitement. Like you Garden of Eden just gets everything kicked off. Then you get over to Abraham, and Abraham starts talking about like circumcisions. Like that's a hard conversation to sell to people right there. Like if like imagine like you're Abraham and you're talking to God, and he's like, "Listen, man, I got this thing I need you to do for my covenant, and so I'm gonna make your people, they're gonna be vast, and they're gonna go everywhere, and everything will be plentiful." But I need you to cut that skin off the tip of your dick right there. Just need you to do that. I need you to do it to yourself. And then I need you to go. You have some slaves. Yeah, I need you to go over there, and I need you to tell those slaves that you need to cut off the skin on their dicks, and then you need to do it to everybody that's in the city. Like now he's got to then poor Abraham, he's got to actually go. He's got to go down to the city and explain this to everybody. He's like, everybody, listen. I just talked to God up here on this mountain. I think that's where it was, and he told me that all of you need to cut the skins of your dick off.
Yeah, that's a hard sell, I would think.
It might be just a little bit.
4,000 years later, they're still having this debate.
It's still there.
Wow. Yeah. And that goes kind of back to what you were talking about earlier, and just how Christians I think most Christians don't read the Bible. Like I know a lot of the Christians that I knew when I was a Christian, they'd go to the back of the Bible and they'd read it how the back of the Bible would tell them, you go to this verse and you go to that verse, or they'd have, preachers telling them how to read their Bible, read this verse and that verse and this verse. So they have, their daily inspiration things that tells them to read this verse every day. I don't think that most of them have taken the time to sit down, read it from beginning to end. They definitely don't have the time. They don't take the time to say what praise or standing for truth or guys like that do and actually break it down and justify it. So yeah, I think they just really don't understand some of the things that the Bible says, and it's kind of, and that's why they react like they do to us, or to me especially, because I probably come at it a little bit differently. I'm trying to get over being disrespectful and have more positive conversations, but
yeah.
but it's hard when it's just like, yeah, you talk up Abraham, but the guy literally was going to kill his child for God until God was like, psych, like, my bad, dog, didn't mean that. And it's like, but they don't understand none of that. Like, they don't really, I don't think they really have read it. They don't get it,
And I think for me, one of the things that I would encourage, anybody that's trying to take the biblical text seriously, particularly the Old Testament text, seriously in the sense of, I think there is something to be said, actually a lot to be said, for using it in like a reader response way. Are you guys familiar with reader response? So I was raised in the Baptist church, and so reader response was like satanic. But reader response essentially is, you read the text and what does it say to you where you are in your life, in your context.
Okay.
And so the text has meaning in that way for you because you're the reader, and how are you responding to the text? And, I used to think, oh my gosh, how you're not understanding the context of that. You're not understanding the ancient Near Eastern. Well, I mean, I didn't really think ancient Near Eastern at the time, but you're not getting how this verse references this verse and this other verse. But there is definitely value in letting a text like that speak to you where you are, in the same way that if you read Herman Melville's Moby Dick, you don't necessarily have to understand everything about Melville's life and where the context in which you read that text and it says something to you, in the same way that you listen to the the Goo Goo Dolls, and those songs say something to you. You don't have to understand necessarily the background. So I think there is something to be said for that. But if you're trying to come at the biblical text, the Old Testament text, and to get it in its original context and to understand the genre, then I think one of the things that you really should do is read other ancient Near Eastern literature. And if shameless plug for our channel, but therefore, if you come to our channel, there are lots of resources that we name, free resources that you can get to be able to read ancient Near Eastern text, cuneiform text in particular. And you can see these stories, these creation stories, the original, the older flood stories. And understand, you can read these ancient law collections. If you want to read the older law collections that are much, much earlier than the biblical text, we can show you where those things are. And I think it'll put, in particular, the Old Testament text, but also the New Testament text into a perspective that I think makes it a lot clearer and manageable.
Yeah, I know. I definitely want to read more of the old text. Like I'm fascinated with Samaria lore. One of the things that I know we want to talk about is ancient astronauts, and the Anunnaki are all a part of that. And I'm fascinated by that. But it's funny to me that even a lot of Christians that I know, a lot of Christians that I know actually believe this ancient astronaut theory. They somehow align it with what they have with God, and it just amazes me how people can believe things and don't try to find the truth of it. Like I was sucked into the show a long time ago. I think maybe at one point I was like, yeah, this makes the most sense right here. If there were gods, then they had to be that. But then the more you look into it, and you just discover that it's all bunk science, that none of it's really based on fact. But you go around in society and you talk to all these people, and not more and more people believe this crap. It just blows my mind, like how people can believe things and have no basis for truth about. Like I was saying, like if you're a Christian, you would think that you would be begging for the truth of what the original manuscripts say. But I read it in chat. I'm going to be talking to Guzman on Saturday, and Guzman said he went over to your channel and he can't watch none of that because it's all a bunch of sodomite this or that. And I'm like, dude, look, they're literally giving you the truth of your religion, and you are just shutting it down completely. Like what? It just blows my mind.
And I get it, and if I don't feel comfortable talking to Guzman just because of his age.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything against him.
I'm gonna have to be real careful when I talk to him.
Yeah, I don't. My daughter is his age, and that I wouldn't want my daughter on talking to somebody my age on YouTube. So
yeah, that's right.
Well, especially me. Like I've even asked him, like, why would your parents let you come talk to me?
I mean, this is just me. But I guess what I would say, sort of here on the air, so he can hear it, is that I get it, right? I mean, I grew up fundamentalist Christian, so I understand. He sees a video on. Did the Bible originally condone homosexuality in Leviticus 18? And I think there's actually a really strong case for that. I'm not saying that the final form of the biblical text condoned it. The whole point of the video is that the original form, right, that one of the earlier forms did, which I think says something. It's something we need to, all consider. But I get it, from his perspective and from his upbringing, the context that he's in. I get it. He sees a rainbow flag in a video, and everything that this guy says is going to be from Satan. And I understand. I get it. Obviously, I don't think that's true. But it makes sense. So I don't hold that. I don't think that's uncommon. I don't think that's unnecessary.
But what if you're wrong, Josh?
Yeah, and hey, you know what? I feel like it's one of the things I've been listening, Skylar, thanks to you. I've been listening to a whole bunch of Darth Dawkins,
oh god,
Darwin's Deity or Evolution Falls or whatever his name is.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and it's just like, I mean, I don't study philosophy, so I don't want to overstep my bounds here, but this idea of it does seem to me from a presuppositional standpoint, I would feel very comfortable saying, yeah, I from an epistemological standpoint, all I can know is what I can know. And so I can't be absolutely certain of something.
Yeah.
What I find silly is that the presuppositional person won't say that as well. That there's some way that they're not through their senses, ultimately through their senses, their subjective perspective, that they're not coming to this realization, which I just think it's, as you say, Skylar, disingenuous.
Well, and here's the other thing, right? Is like, in the end, when you question them about their source of knowledge, like in this kind of argument, they're just going to say God told them so.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, okay, like if that's what, like, you're coming to me with this claim that God has given you the ability to have knowledge, and I don't know what you want me to do with that. Like that, it's like literally you're just asserting something that it's not demonstratable, and it's like, why? Like, okay, I could just say, fucking pink hippos that fly in the sky.
But I mean,
made everything rational.
So you've talked to them. So when you say to that response, how do you know that? Like, how do you know that God makes you know that?
Yeah.
What's the response?
Like, what do you mean? Like, what? Oh, they just justify it. They're just going like, yeah, this is what it doesn't make any sense. It's a self-assertion, basically. They assert that God communicates with them. And, well, sometimes they'll say that God is the whole, like, it's part of the essence of everything. Without God.
But I mean,
along those lines, yeah.
So, okay, I mean, I'll buy that. Like, and if you want to say, I guess, from an ontological standpoint, I don't know. Again, I feel like I'm leaving my feet on here more than I'd like to. But if you want to say that I believe that this is the case, fine. Like, I'm good with that. I'm good with that. But if you say God reveals it to me in such a way that I can know something for certain, well, how do you know that? That's the question that I don't think I understand the response.
No, they're just going to say, they're going to be like, because God let me know for certain.
Yeah, I've literally had Christians tell me that like God speaks to them directly. Like, and I'm like, what you mean the voice in your head that we all have? You know, we think and we have this little voice in our head. And they're like, no, it's God. And I'm like, well, how do you know it's God? Like how do you know it's God? You know, like, but they literally told me that. Like, I'm like,
and even that, like that, I'd be okay with, right? And I have been okay with that because if you're saying that I have this subjective experience, right? I just have this feeling. I just have this. I just know. Cool, right? Because I think at the end of the day, an honest person will say, "And that, yeah, I can't be absolutely certain that that's the God of the Bible. I can't be, but I believe it because of the subjective experience." Hey, let's move on because that's awesome. You go for it.
What they try to do is they'll try to do like logical possibilities with you. Like they'll ask you a question like, if there was a God, could he give you the ability to, could he let you, is there a way that God could give you the knowledge and you'd be able to acknowledge that you've got that new information, basically, is how it breaks down. Like, is it possible for God to give human beings knowledge? And they're going to be like, yeah. Like, do you think a God could logically could possibly, I don't know how to say that. Is it logical that they could let you know that you had taken that information? And most people will be like, yeah. And then they're like, well, if that's possible, then it's possible God could let me know something and I could know it is the case. Like it's ridiculous. It's like this, just empty assertion after empty assertion.
But I wouldn't with that. I wouldn't have a problem with that because it seems like there's, from an epistemological standpoint, there's like the potential of that being true, right? Okay, fine. I'm good with that. Because I think that's where Christians end up, right? And I think like honest Christians end up there. Honest religious people end up there.
Yeah, that's true.
God, and God has made it known to me this way. Can I demonstrate that to you? Can I prove that to you? No. But I believe it. Fine.
I think I can accept it a little bit more as well, because I mean, if God is real, then he's gonna speak to his followers, and I'm not gonna be able to hear that or see that, you know. So to where I don't think it's really happening, you know. Like when I was a Christian, I didn't have that experience, you know. Leaving Christianity, I was able to look back at all the times that I thought God was speaking to me. I was actually speaking to myself. I was, problem solving with my own abilities, and it wasn't God, but just some voice in my head. But that was my experience. So if there is a God, then he would speak to his followers, I would have to assume. So I try not to take away those arguments. Like I was in a conversation with Messenger Reveals, and he was telling me about this personal experience he had where he was actually like floating in the air and all this crap. And this is what showed him that God was real. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, all right, this is a load of crap. I don't believe any of it. But I wasn't there. I wasn't there to see it. This was his personal experience. And I'm not going to sit there and tell him, like, you're lying to me, because I don't know that. He might have really experienced it. I don't know. I wasn't there. You know?
Yeah, and I think that's where, like, what I don't even know why I would, in that situation, accuse, like, and I'm you obviously wouldn't. You know, why would you accuse? Like, nobody would accuse somebody of saying, you know, or lying about that. It's like, oh,
I think there are some atheists though that would just like straight up, oh, you're just giving me a personal experience. This has no validation, and I didn't want to go there. Like,
oh, sure, I see what you're saying. So, like, you know, if we're in a debate about demonstrating the reality of that, sure, in that situation, yeah, absolutely, yeah, then that would make sense. Yeah, that would make sense.
But I just, you know, of course, I don't think that thing is possible. You know, like even in my own personal experiences, looking back, you know, we had this Ouija board experience where we thought things moved all over the room, and just looking back, I was like, no, man, I was just really high.
Excuse me.
It's just funny how, they always try to say that we go out of our way to dismiss their arguments as atheists or agnostics or having these debates with them. But I think I actually go out of my way to acknowledge their arguments, make way for their arguments, even if it is a personal argument that really bears no meaning in the debate. Like a personal experience, you're not going to be able to show that. There's no evidence of it, but I try to give them that. Like I said, if there's a God, I would have to assume he'd be speaking to his people. Although I do think that aliens are more rational.
What I find really interesting is, I don't know if you watched that debate on the Non Sequitur show with the representative from Lord Rael's group.
I think I did. Yeah.
But that's a group that mixes, what they would consider to be Christianity and ancient aliens, because
that's pretty awesome. Some little alien action mixed up in the
like Rael, the leader, is the Sumerian god Enlil, right? And like revivified. And the Enki is there in the mix. One of the is the god Enki, and there are all kinds of other gods that are there. And there's like these aliens at the outer ring of the solar system or something, their spaceships ready to shoot meteors or whatever. And it's like, really?
Yeah.
All right. I mean, I don't believe that, and I don't. You can't. You're not giving me convincing evidence of this thing that you're asserting. But
and you'd think with today's technology, we'd see the aliens, but
they're
right out there.
This is the part. If I consider myself to be wrestling against anything in this approach to religion or approach to faith, it's sticking with a model and modifying your model no matter what you face. No matter what evidence is put forward. So, a good example of this that I've seen in my own life, when you talk to somebody and you say, "Hey, Genesis 6-9, that's not the original account of the flood story," and it's actually really late, relatively speaking. We have a Sumerian flood story from probably 1,200 years earlier.
Mm.
And the response is, we have to keep this model. We have to keep our understanding that the Bible is the inspired word of God, and that this is an infallible text, and this is, and so then the response is, oh, well, that one is the corrupted version of the flood, and God passed down through oral tradition, completely separate from this, the Genesis 6-9 account, which is really crazy similar, but in the details different and true. And it's like, okay, that's possible, but is that the model that best accounts for the data? No, I don't think. So I think that's where I end up with this. Is I've kind of given up on trying to prove things to people in the community. And I'm taking it more of an approach of, okay, that's possible, but is it the model that best accounts for the data that we have? And I would say no, probably not. So
yeah, and that's like young Earth creationists and how they stick to their model no matter what, even though like science is some science. Like I was just reading this thing. It was in the Vintage News, so I don't think that it's too reliable, and I don't really trust the science. And I think science has always said that it's pretty much impossible to come from two human beings. But I'm reading new science, and it's probably from creationists, but whatever. I haven't went too deep into it, but it's science that says that we did come from two human beings 100,000 to 200,000 years ago. And instead of embrace the science, they got to stick to this young Earth mold, this model, so to where there is science out there that does justify the things they say, but they can't accept it because it goes against their model. And it just blows me away. Like, why wouldn't you be jumping on this science, bringing it up in somebody like me's face, to where, we're trying to use science to debunk the things that you believe in. Why not use science to debunk what we're saying? But they refuse to because it goes against their model. It blows me away.
Yeah.
Somebody in chat is telling, and I'm not sure how this would be even possible. Is it possible for Jesus as Lord to stop women from responding in my chat. Like, I don't get how he could do that.
He won't argue with women. That's one thing he says he won't do, or debate women.
Yeah, and it's been a problem, you know, because I try to let Jill on my chat or come in and talk to people as much, you know, talk to me as much as he wants. But then it's become a problem because he has all these women blocked. So if I bring on Lady Tasha, or you know, if another woman wants to come into the chat, then they can't come in because Jill has them blocked. And now I guess people are saying that he's somehow messing with them in my chat. Like, I don't understand how he could do that. And I don't know how I would combat it, guys. I'm still learning here. Outside of it, you know, which I had X from Utah Outcast was like, you need to just ban this guy. And I'm like, I don't like to do that, but maybe we're getting to that point, Joe.
So you gotta troll. Just, you know, if you're gonna troll, just troll just a little bit in the comments. Just don't go overboard, Jill. Like,
yeah,
like it's like I don't like censoring people either on the channel. I get really very open to what people say, but like at some point, there are people who will just create multiple accounts, just keep coming in.
Mm-hmm.
We'll block them, create another account, come back in. We had a real problem with it recently, actually, in the show, but I'm pretty sure it was that dude Praise I Am with his multiple YouTube accounts that he constantly makes.
And I think that's another thing that's funny for me is I know I've said this before, but you know, when we had that individual on your show, Skylar, when he came in, he was actually, you know, humble, and kind, and
it started out good, I thought. You know?
Yeah, and I was really excited, frankly, because it was like, okay, you know, hey, we've turned a corner here. You know, this isn't going to be, you know, crazy. And look, I get when we put that. Now I'm trying to remember what it was. That debate video out where I did the voices, and then Skylar did the video for it. You know,
it was pretty funny though.
It was funny, and I mean, we made fun of me too in it. You know, try to be fair all around. But I get it. You know, it was meant to be funny. But God, I mean, like, I haven't watched all the things that he said about me, but I've seen a couple, and good God, I mean, he's angry, and I don't think there's a reason to be angry. Honestly.
Neither do I. Like, if anybody should have been angry from that whole conversation, it should have been Skylar.
Yeah,
you know, and yeah, like why would he be so upset? The reason has to be is because you and Skylar was able to just make him look like a fool. Everything he was saying, like in his mind, in you, that's not what you were trying to do. You were just trying to read the truth and give citation, and I think just didn't like that. He wants to be able to win the debate, you know, that, which is why I didn't even really give him a chance to debate. I just went in and attacked.
Yeah, we started off friendly. That was the weird part. We actually thought like it was going to be like when he first came in, he was actually pretty good. We were a pretty lighthearted conversation. He was very polite, and then just as the debate, you know, went on and his ass kept getting handed to him over and over again. Like, he would be so like, but the thing about it is if people are humble about it and they're like, you know, let me take this in. Like, I don't think we push as hard.
He's in the chat.
But the problem is like when people come in with the cockiness and the arrogance into the room and they want to act like they're like they get it somehow more than you get it.
Yeah,
I just can't. I'm gonna give it to you.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Like, I've tried to explain it to my audience because they can't understand why am I nice to this one and not that one. And it's all about how you come in. You know, like I try to explain it to Steve and why I put up my first Darth Dawkins video again, even though I lost that conversation because I didn't know who Darth was. He ambushed me. He came in and just totally surprised me with everything he said. And got me to the point to where I'm like, no, screw the laws of logic, shove them up, you know, somewhere the sun don't shine. You know, anytime you say that, you've lost the argument. But I put it up just to show, you know, just how disingenuous he was. And the fact that he came in attacking me from his first breath, like just the disdain in his voice, like you could tell, like, you're the raging atheist, you know. All right, dude, if you're coming like this, I'm going to come right back at you in the same exact way. If you're not going to have respect for me, I'm not going to have respect for you. But if you have respect for me, you know, we're not going to agree on anything, but we can at least have a decent conversation. And that's where, and I just don't think they understand that we can pick up on that disdain in their voice immediately. And it's, yeah, we're human beings. We're going to reject that. And it's going to be more of a negative conversation as a result.
Yeah, and I don't again, this animosity I don't think is required. Again,
no,
there's a place for and I think it's a good place for, like, you know, picking on each other and, you know, being funny. But at the end of the day, I would hope in this community that what we're really looking for is honest dialogue and really engaging with the data. And so I don't think that for somebody like Darth Dawkins, for example, and again, I don't have any experience with the guy, just watching him. But, you know, one of the things that I see is that if I were to come to you and I were to say, oh, did you know that in the genitive construction in Sumerian that sometimes neither the A nor the K show up in the writing system? Do you understand that? Mm-hmm. You would go, I don't know Sumerian. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And then I would go, I can't believe. Let me say it slower for you. Right? That would be a real dickish thing to do, and it would be really strange because you don't know Sumerian, and why would you know Sumerian? Right. And so for me to come in, that's how it sounds to me sometimes. It's like, okay, you know, you probably haven't thought through presuppositional apologetics. Why would you? And so to come at you and then to treat you like, you know, some moron for not knowing the nuances of presuppositional apologetics, it seems we're not trying to get to a better understanding of things. We're looking to knock somebody down.
Yeah, and I hate that. Like Guzman's gonna come on Saturday, and I've had him on one time before, and he's a 12-year-old boy that sometimes gets really disrespectful. I think that at least he has respected my wishes and has cleaned up his act, at least when he's in my chat. Sorry that Praise and Jill, the adults, can't do that, but you know, and like his parents are in the chat right now, and you know, like he'll come on, and I've said some bad things. You know, I mean, I have a video pretty much calling his parents child abusers. You know, but yet they're still able to come on, watch me have Guzman will come on, and we'll have a respectful conversation. I'll have to be really careful because he's a 12-year-old boy, but it'll be a respectful conversation. And then with other conversations, it's not from the very beginning. And it's very easy to put it on me, the raging atheist. Oh, you're doing it. No, I'm not. I'm open to having these conversations, and I've proven it. But if you're going to come at me in a certain way, then don't be surprised when you get that raging atheist, you know, like, and a lot of the stuff I'm going to say when I'm going off on you isn't going to be stuff I really believe. I'm just going to be going off on you, you know, and it's not a lucrative conversation by any means, you know, to where me and Guzman, I've actually gotten some concept to Matt Powell by talking to Guzman. And I felt like I maybe have gained a little ground with Guzman to where you're never going to do that with Jill and Praise and these people, because they have agendas and it's often not a good one, in my opinion. You know, it's not.
And that's, I think, and then Skylar, I'd love to hear what you think about this, but I mean, the only reason that I'm even, you know, when we had that individual in the room the last time, and you know, you kicked him out after he got extraordinarily rude. You know, I had said, I'm done with that guy. And even then, you know, made a couple more videos, but I felt like I got my point across to the majority of people. And that's all I was intending to do, to show biblical interpretation is difficult. Hermeneutical approaches it's difficult to formulate a good one. I don't think he has a good one, and that's okay. We all have to learn. And that's it. Honestly, it just takes time. It takes study. It takes, honestly, a lot of times formal education in these things, and studying under people that have developed over years and years of experience and training under other rigorous scholars, or scholars that do rigorous research. Developing those things, it's difficult to do, right? I'm rambling a bit, but the point is that the only reason now that I'm willing to go on another debate with this guy and with our other good friend Jill is really has, as I said earlier, has nothing to do with thinking that they're going to change their mind, right? It's to get out to a wide audience what I consider to be the flaws in their arguments, right? In their biblical interpretation. And again, that's not to put them down. That's not to make them feel dumb or something. That's not the idea. But because they're so outspoken about it, I'm willing to say, all right, you know what? I'll put something together. Skylar will put something together, and we'll go on. And we had this thing set up on the Non Sequitur show, and for whatever reason, they
Praise is claiming that you and Skylar cowered out of that moderated debate. He's in the chat right now. I challenged these guys straight up to a moderated debate, but they cowered out.
So Skylar, I mean, am I misremembering this? That the Non Sequitur show was set up and they had agreed to it, and then they said, no, we're not doing it. Am I misremembering that?
I literally have the emails.
And Non Sequitur mentioned it not this last week in one of their shows as well. So so yeah, I think that was set up, Praise, and I think we can all see who the coward is. I'm interested. I wanted to hear what Skylar has to say about that as well. But I think you're right, Dr. Josh. I often say you can't dismiss somebody that doesn't have education because you don't know what they've learned. But as one of those people, to where I've read a lot of books, but I don't have that formal education, I'm always going to go with the much studied research as like a person such as yourself or your wife or somebody that has done that extensive research. I'm just me personally. I'm not going to put my knowledge up against them. I'm going to listen to what they have to say, and I'm going to go do more research. So for anybody to, like how Praise, kind of totally dismissed your schooling, to me, that right there, you're not an open human being. You're not open to learning. You're only here for an agenda. But yeah, I wanted to hear what Skylar had to say about it as well.
Yeah, I think that Praise, part of me thinks he's a troll, just like a secret atheist troll. But he's just really good at doing it. A part of me always wants to go to that instinct to think that that's his motivation. But I mean, and the fact that first of all, I'm telling everybody, go to his YouTube channel. I'm inviting people to do it because I want you to look at his channel. And I want you to look at the comment section and look at the names of the people who comment positively towards him. And see if you start seeing any connection to anything. Because they all have these funny, weird, quirky sense of humor names. A lot of them are Asian. But then they'll be I'm just treat yourself to this, folks. Go check it out. And you'll see that he makes accounts up to positively comment on his own video. It's very bizarre in that sense. So, but I don't know. I don't know what the deal is. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's totally genuine. Maybe this is he's just angry and just hates us atheists. I think a lot of times what happens is I think we get a bad rap in a sense. We're nice people. We're nice guys. We're not trying to I'm not trying to be mean. Sure, I might ask some tough questions every once in a while, but it's people they use the word atheist, which is ironic because Josh and I aren't atheists. But they use the word atheist. But they use the word and it becomes this dirty word. It's they're atheist, and like that, and they get that mentality as if we're so different from them in a lot of ways. It's like we're just all human beings, folks. We're all in the same boat, trying to survive, do our things. And but there's always, like, I guess with Christians, they have like this spiritual aspect that they believe in. Like I don't even. It's so funny. I'm so far past that kind of mentality, where I used to think that like there are these supernatural forces all about doing like demons and angels and, you know, the spirit, the Holy Spirit, all these kind of things. Like as a Christian, you think that there's like this ultimate battle for good and evil going on right now between God and Satan. And in the end, after everyone else is like, after all these plagues and all these revelation type things happen, most of the world dies and suffers and war. Like, but then it'll be all right. Because then we'll have a new heaven on earth here, folks. Like I would be frightened if I still believed that I was a Christian. I'd be terrified. I'd be like, oh, good Lord. Like, I don't want to, like, who wants to raise kids during the apocalypse? Like, if that's going to happen. I don't want to be raising no kids during the apocalypse. It's going to be hard enough. Me trying to survive my own. Now I have people, the little ones that I love and care about. Yeah. I got to make sure they survive. Like, that's terrifying to me. So, I don't know, man. I would just, luckily, as a non-Bible believer, I can live with that freedom. Not having to worry about like some dark forces all about trying to just constantly mess with human beings and man. I mean, literally, angels in the Bible were sleeping with human beings at some point, like making them Nephilim.
As the fallen angels were, you know. And I'm studying the 30 Years War and the witch trials right now. I've been planning on doing witch trial videos for a while. And that's one of the things that led to the witch trials was this common belief that the devil was playing with the strings of mankind, that the devil was on every corner, you know, the common belief that it was the end of times right there at that moment. And this all led to mass hysteria and pointing the fingers at neighbors, leading to the deaths of thousands of innocent people. You know, so it just fascinates me, you know, and I see a lot of that happening again. You know, like I deal with a lot of these Christians that are talking about the devil and how the devil is, you know, attacking every human being. And I troll a lot about it. Like, you know, Anderson says there's 51 million devils, yet they're somehow messing with 4.5 billion people that aren't Christian. You know, but it seems to me that is kind of a problem when you start to take it literally and you think that there's a literal devil, you know, and whether the devil's real or not real, that's up for debate. But if you think that there's a literal devil messing with every single human being on this planet, well, we've seen what leads from that, and to think that we can't go back there again. Well, I would point you to Tanzania and the witch trials going on today, right now, as we live and breathe. That is happening right now. So for people to think that it can't happen again, it certainly can. And before we go, and we're going to be wrapping this up because I got to get to work. I'm not sure what's going on in the chat, guys. I haven't been able to read it. I haven't seen the things that Guzman's parents said. That being said, like, I only really want people getting banned or timed out if they're using homophobic slurs, even the word retard. Yeah, I'm not using the word retard anymore, but I don't want people coming down on Wujita for using, you know, if somebody else uses a word that I decide I'm not using anymore, I believe in free speech. So I would please ask moderators, I'll have to go back and read what was said, but to use caution when doing that. You know, if Jill's in my chat talking about how Democrats are killing babies, I don't want that in my chat. But if Jill's just trolling, or that's a different thing. So please just kind of use some awareness, moderators, please. I definitely don't want some I don't want some bullying going on. I'll just put it that way. But I'll have to go back and look and see what happened in the chat to have an ultimate opinion on it. I just wanted to get that out. I do have to wrap it up. I really appreciate both of you guys coming in and talking to me.
If I could, not just real quick.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Just 20 seconds. You know, I think that Skylar and I very happy to go do that debate that Skylar had set up on the Non Sequitur show, because I remember talking to Kyle about it and seeing if that would work, and very happy to still do that.
And yeah, they're both in the chat right now. So praise, Jesus. You hear Skylar and Dr. Josh right here saying they're more than willing,
Yeah, and for me, look, again, I'm under no illusions, misconceptions that somehow, these guys are gonna say, "Oh gosh, well that makes lots of sense." That being said, as I said before, praise has now corrected one of his things and said that it's an infinitive absolute in Exodus 21:20, which is fantastic. So, I mean, I think there is some progress to be made here. I'm in no way coming down on praise. I'm not coming down on Jill. I think praise is making amazing effort, right? I mean, he's clearly putting forth a lot of work. Every time I hear him come on, he's come up with something new. He's got new text that he's reading, a new text that I think he's doing it incorrectly. And I think that there are ways that he could better direct that research. But I think it's fantastic that he's doing it. And I'd love to see praise learn Hebrew and Greek and Aramaic. I think it'd actually be really beneficial. But that being said, I do think that the assertions that he's making about some of these texts are misinformed, and so I'm willing to go on the Non Sequitur show with Skylar, and we can talk about that stuff. So.
But yeah, and I'd just like to say, the people he latches onto, in my opinion, kind of hurts him. Like, if you're going to latch on to RPR, dude, a lot of us aren't going to take you seriously just because you're latched on to RPR. You need to get that in your brain that this RPR thing is a hate group against us. I know atheists like me, I'm not going to have anything to do with them. So by latching yourself onto them, you take away from the seriousness of your arguments, in my opinion. But just my opinion. Skylar, did you want to say anything? I do believe I got both of your channels in the links below. So if for some reason any of my viewers aren't subscribed to Dr. Josh and Skylar Fiction, Digital Hammurabi, please subscribe to them. You guys, both of you have awesome channels.
Oh, thank you. That's really kind of. Thank you for having us.
It's been super fun, man. It was awesome to get to come on here. It was a good time.
Well, I appreciate both of you coming on, man. I feel blessed for having you guys here.
It's been a lot of fun.
Oh, absolutely, man. Thank you again.
Oh, yeah. I appreciate it, guys, and we will see you soon.